distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. At the onset, please let me congratulate the Hong Kong Family Welfare Society on their 70th anniversary, as well as the organization of this excellent symposium. And I'm indeed honored and privileged to be invited to be a part of this symposium. Thank you very much for that. In my presentation, with the time given to me, I'll be talking about the pioneering the first Malaysian Family Wellbeing Index, which was done in 2011, and the second index in 2016 is the Malaysian Family Wellbeing Index, programs and family-friendly initiatives for family well-being, success factors and challenges for transformation, the way forward, and I'll conclude with my closing remarks. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, families today are facing many, many challenges and pressures. As we know, with our modern lifestyle, pressure cooker environment, industrialization, globalization, etc., has brought lots of challenges to families. And development by itself, in general, brings benefit to all families. However, it also creates risk and challenges that must be anticipated and adapted to. Hence, we have to be alert and responsive to the future challenges that families will face and equip them with the necessary skills, knowledge, as well as provide the necessary services and interventions. And as we know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Section 1613, has said that the family is entitled to protection by society and the state. It is the family which provides the basic needs of the individual for food, shelter, and care, besides education, health, and welfare. And family is the agent which plays the primary role in laying the foundation for healthy communities and societies. However, when families break down and fail to provide the support for their members, the effects reverberate across society and are far-reaching. If families are doing well, then so is society. Families do not stand in isolation, but are connected to schools, communities, and other support systems. Hence, the necessity to focus on families, because families make a critical contribution to society in terms of economic, reproductive, productive, and as well as social aspects. And many socio-economic trends today make it clear that policies in support of resilient and strong families are important for overall success of development efforts and societal well-being. Some of the key challenges, which I also mentioned this morning, which we face as families today, cut across the life cycle of an individual. And at every stage of the family life cycle, we are faced with many, many challenges. Some of the key issues, which I'm sure is also faced with many other countries, are marital stability, family support systems are weakening, work-life balance issues, impact of ICT on families, changing family structure, social issues, aging population, multi-generational ties, and parentings. These are just some of the key issues, but I would just like to stress that every stage of the family life cycle today, there are issues and challenges faced by individuals. And hence, we have to deal with it. For example, with aging population, one of the key issues is loneliness. Based on our research done, it's loneliness and sometimes financial issues. Marital stability, as I heard just now, almost 25% of families have second, third, and fourth marriages. So we need to look at all these issues and have specific targeted interventions to address them. And as marriage is the basic foundation of a family, I think it's critical that we also pay a lot of attention to strengthening marriages. In terms of our Family Wellbeing Index, we came up with the Family Wellbeing Index in 2011. Let me just share some of the process when we thought of developing this index, we were one of the early countries to look at how to measure family well-being, and it was quite challenging at that time because we're starting from almost nobody had come out with a family well-being index. There was other indexes, but for example, the life satisfaction index, the Happy Planet Index, Happiness Index, they came much later, 2012, 2014, Quality of Life Index and all that. So for us, especially, we found it was a little bit challenging, but we took up the challenge. We managed to get funding from our government to come up with a Malaysian Family Wellbeing Index to see what is happening to Malaysian families, what is the trends, what are the issues facing Malaysian families. And the rationale for this was to build a set of indicators to measure the well-being of Malaysian families, to monitor family well-being trends, to come up with a family well-being index, and to identify some priorities for action to enhance the well-being of Malaysian families. And so the first index was developed in 2011, and it took about at least almost a year to come up with the index. And as we said, we were pioneering it. Before that, there were indexes, but mainly GDP was used as a measure, best measure known for as a proxy indicator for overall societal development and progress in general. And then there's been a lot of debate on measuring the well-being of societies. Is wealth that is traditionally measured by GDP all that matters, or should we be looking at other measures as well, things that are important to people? We know GDP has been the best known method of measuring macroeconomic activity and a proxy indicator for societal well-being. But however, it cannot be relied on totally for policy development, especially on the areas of family and social issues. And hence it's now widely recognized that although GDP growth remains an important variable to measure economic dynamics and wealth in a society, it needs to be accompanied by other indicators to explain the full picture about progress of societies and about improving people's lives and well-being. GDP has, to a certain extent, failed to capture many of the factors that influence people's lives, such as family relationships, security and safety, leisure, income distribution, and a sustainable environment. So how can we measure family well-being? I would like to say that is well-being in society shared fairly among different groups in society, such as the youth and the elderly, men and women, rural and urban, and how can we make sure the actions we take will better family lives today? And hence, I would just like to say that at the end of it, well-being is as defined by the World Health Organization, defines health as being a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely absence of disease or infirmity. There are many, many definitions, but I will not go into it in the context of time. So one of the biggest challenges we faced was how would we define family well-being? And besides looking at various methodologies to come up with our Malaysian definition of family well-being, we used it to broadly illustrate the family's well-being in relation to their jobs, family relationships, health, economy, religion and spirituality, environment, standards and standards of living. This is our definition, and it may differ from other countries, or even, for example, how Hong Kong will define its family well-being. So in terms of our background, we looked at family well-being from the quantifiable aspects or the objective aspect, as well as family well-being from the subjective perspective. Some of the indicators were like housing, public safety, income, and in terms of subjective family well-being, we covered family member satisfaction, happiness, interaction of family relationships, family functioning, resilient families, family coping mechanisms. In terms of the development of the family index, we did the first index in 2011, and based on that, we came out with the methodology used was, we made some modifications to the second Malaysian Family Wellbeing Index, which was conducted in 2016. It's a dynamic process, but we need to stabilize the index, because it's based on literature review. If we keep changing the domains or the additional indicators in the existing index, then it's not possible sometimes to compare the index over time. So because we are still finalizing the index and what is important, and sometimes with time, there are components that change in importance, are new components or variants coming in. And that's the reason why when we did the 2016 index, there were some modifications made. And the Family Wellbeing Index in 2011, the 2011 index consisted of 7 domains and 23 indicators. And there were about 120 items measured. And it took about at least 30 to 40 minutes to do the self-interview administered questionnaire. And that's quite difficult to get respondents to cooperate. And the second index consisted of 8 domains and 23 indicators. And we measured some of the key areas which are considered important to Malaysian families. And so the 10-point Likert scale was used in terms of methodology. We used the sampling frame, which are based on the census sampling frame. So in terms of representativeness of the findings, it is representative of the Malaysian population. And in the first index, there were 2,800 respondents involving fathers, mothers, and children aged between 13 to 24 years. And in the second index, there were 3,800 households and children aged 33 to 24. You see that we have changed the age group of the number. So every family who qualifies for to be interviewed must have at least one child who is between the age of. And when we did the first index, we took 13 to 24, and we found that even younger children play an important role in building up the family in terms of inculcation of values, relationship, and all that. So we had to relook at the age criteria for children. And I think so in the second index, we had to change. And that's the reason why we are not comparing the first index with the second index. And it was done face-to-face interviews and self-administered questionnaires. In terms of the formula for calculation of family index, we did the mean scores of the indicators, which was based on the items for each indicator. And then we had the domain scores, which is sum of the indicators divided by number of indicators, and then the number of domains divided by the domain scores divided by the number of domains. And this was a formula which we used in the calculation of the Malaysian Family Wellbeing Index. Now let me just go into some of the domains in the Family Wellbeing Index. In the first index, there were 7 domains: family relationship, family and economy, health, safety, community, family and religion, spirituality, housing and environment. These were the 7 domains which were used in the first Family Wellbeing Index. And it was based on literature review, focus group discussions with various stakeholders. And we also had a technical committee consisting of representatives from various relevant agencies like the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, the Economic Planning Unit, the Statistics Department, some NGOs, so that when we got from them as well, the stakeholders, on what were the key issues or what are the areas they were interested in us looking at and what they felt was important in terms of that particular perspective. And this was important because when it comes to implementation of interventions and services, the buy-in is already there. They have been involved in the process of the development of the index, and they are committed towards the implementation of index interventions to ensure the enhancement of family well-being. And in terms of the domains within the, in terms of the indicators within the, for example, family relationship, some of the key aspects which were important based on our literature review, based on our focus group discussions, based on our interviews with relevant groups, we felt these were the key areas that came out: parental involvement, family resilience, family functioning, quality time with family, work and family balance, husband-wife relationships, and family coping. Similarly, for family economic situation, some of the key areas were standard of living, family economic situation, financial debt, well-being, family health, family safety. So we had various issues that were covered. For the second index, which was done in 2016, we had extra, for housing and environment, we added the 3R practices, because in terms of the sustainable development agenda, as well as was a new domain which was added, family and communication technology. And we looked at the influence of technology on the family, the use of SMS on telephone, and control of usage by families, whether they have any particular rules and regulations in terms of that. So these were some of the changes we made. So in terms of Family Wellbeing Index for 2011, one of the highest scores was for family and religion or spirituality. They felt that that is the most important domain for them for ensuring their family well-being, followed by family relationships. And if you look, the family economic situation had a lower score, and it is true that if you have economic stress, you are in debts and all that, then it's going to have an effect on your family well-being as well. So we also did a study, which I won't go into detail in the interest of time, that we compared it with various variables, socioeconomic variables, like type of family. For example, you will see that blended family had the lowest level of well-being compared to nuclear families and extended families. And in terms of income, again, you see that those who earned 2,000 and below had a very good score of 7.33. And if you are wondering why, it's because they are low income, and there are a lot of programs and interventions and assistance and aid given to this group. So they are quite satisfied with their family well-being. And compared to, let's say, the group that earns 7,000 above, they are the middle income group, middle income trap, and they are not, people's expectations of their level is different, but they can't afford it because life is expensive, but they cannot access government aid, facilities, and all that. So that's why you find that, you know, you're lower income, but your sense of satisfaction seems to be higher than the other group. And we have ethnic differentials and all that. So besides this, we also asked them about open-ended questions and what is their understanding of family well-being. And from this, you can see that to many of them, tranquility and happiness is the most important element of family well-being, followed by economic stability, comfortable place to live in, and trust among family members, close family relationships. So these are some of the key elements which they regard as important to their family well-being. And key challenges families are facing today, the most important key challenge was financial problems. I think no matter what is our income, whatever our income is, nobody will say they don't have financial issues or challenges. And there never seems to be enough. Communication, family communication, health issues, and again, emotional health and social factors. So these are some of the problems, key challenges Malaysian families are facing. To what extent is your family facing challenges in life? About 65% on a ladder of 0 to 10, most of them were in the middle range and said that they had various kinds of challenges which they were facing. And then we come to the second index. I'm just going to go through again. It's just that, surprisingly, again, it's religion and spirituality that scored well, high scores for that. And family relationships, family and community involvement, and family safety. But again, family, housing and environment had a low score, and family and communication technology seems to be having a not very positive effect on the family well-being in terms of maybe communication or interaction. And the second score was 7.33, but as I said, we cannot compare the two scores because of some changes being made in terms of the criteria for selection of respondents, as well as the elements were changed to a certain extent. Okay, some of the recommendations that came out from the Family Wellbeing Index was to come up with strengthen family relationships, helping families achieve work-life balance, and enhancing the standard of living of low-income families and households. And to empower communities as a catalyst for family support systems, to enhance knowledge regarding family safety, healthy lifestyles, and to further promote culture of religiosity and practice, as well as practice of family values. Some of the lessons learned, ladies and gentlemen, from the development of the Family Wellbeing Index were whether we want to have subjective and objective indicators together, identification of domains and indicators. Did we measure what we are supposed to measure? And we would say weightage for domains. We had equal weightage for all the domains. Number of indicators. Sometimes there are just too many questions are being asked, and it's very difficult to get the cooperation of respondents. Scoring of indicators, suitability of measurements used, and single variable to measure domains. For international comparisons, sometimes we just have overall, how would you rate your family well-being in terms of health, in terms of family relationship, in terms of economy. And based on our study, we had these single variables to measure domains, and the score did not vary much. It was slightly higher, in fact, if they had single item measurement for that domain. But if our intention is to look at what kind of interventions and policies that we need to come out to strengthen family well-being, then we need to have more detailed indicators which will help us in designing the right policies, services, and interventions. And that's the reason why we used multiple indicators to measure each domain. Research limitations, one was when we looked at, we interviewed one household, head of household, can be the man or the woman, but sometimes the wife doesn't work and she has work-life balance questions. So again, she has to difficulty in answering those questions. In terms of utilization of ICT, again, some of them are from the rural areas, some of them do not use social media and all that. So we had difficulty in getting responses for those type of questions, and so that's another limitation of the study to a certain extent. Now let me go on to some of the initiatives that we have initiated for family well-being to fulfill the unmet needs of families. And we look at holistic services that benefit the entire family, and the 3 P's approach: public, private, and the people initiatives. And we look at the family life cycle approach. One model which we look at is from the ecological perspective, where we see no person is an island. You are interconnected with various levels of the community and systems. You have the intrust system, which is the individual, the interpersonal, institutional, community, and public policy. And there has to be interaction and holistic bi-directional relationships between each of these systems to ensure family well-being and societal well-being. For example, you need to communicate with the schools. There's to be active engagement of parents with school, with the workforce, with the private sector as well, in terms of looking at family-friendly policies for your employees, and then their public policy, what is needed to ensure that to ensure greater well-being of the family. So we look at it from a holistic perspective. We came up with a national policy, family policy and plan of action in 2010. Again, I think we were one of the pioneers in coming up with an explicit national family policy. It was a very challenging process, and it took, I think, at least 8 years before we got it through cabinet and came up with a family policy, because even our minister kept saying, why do we need a family policy? We have women's policy, we have adolescent policy, we have aging policy, we have child policy. Why do you need another policy? And so it was, I kept having to present the importance of looking at it as a family unit, not from the individual lens. What happens if you look at it individual lens, then you may benefit that one particular family member, but may have an unintended impact on the other family members. And it was challenging, but we never gave up, and at the end of it, we got through the policy. And I'm not so sure, I think at that time and until today also, there are very few countries which have a very explicit policy. and plan of action. In terms of strategic trust, we look at family perspective commitment by stakeholders, review of our policies and laws to prioritize family perspective, which is like the family impact assessment. We haven't got into, although the family policy mentions family impact assessment, but we haven't got into actually evaluating from the family impact assessment lens and accessibility to family-friendly services. So, but it has been challenging. It's a government policy in terms of a buy-in from the other stakeholders is still lacking to a certain extent. It's more government-led sort of policy. Okay, in the interest of time, I'll go a little bit faster. So some of the interventions for family well-being, we have promoted policies and programs to reduce the barriers to marriage and childbearing, work-life balance, family-friendly policies, providing more and better childcare. We encourage private sectors to develop childcare centers. They get some tax rebate if they set up childcare centers in their premises. Encouraging fathers to play a more active role in family responsibilities. And then we have policies and programs that assist families to meet the basic needs of families. Some of the family-friendly initiatives is to look at family perspective in all our socio-economic development efforts. We, as a result of this Family Wellbeing Index, which was done in 2011, our Prime Minister declared that every year, November will be a National Family Month, where everybody will be encouraged to have family-oriented activities. Companies that have family-oriented activities, they can claim tax rebate for the amount of expenditure that they spend on family activities. And work-life balance initiatives like paid maternity leave, paternity leave, compassionate leave, flexible arrangement, and all that. Some of the family development programs, parenting modules, parenting at work, is all interactive experiential work programs which are more done in smaller groups. Premarital course, which is an initiative to look at strengthening marriages, and young couples are encouraged to go for this course, to attend this 2-day course, and they're encouraged to attend it as a couple. For Muslim couples, it is compulsory to attend a marriage course before they get married. For some churches, for example, the Catholic Church, they have to attend the courses as well. But for the other the Hindus and the Buddhists and other religious groups or individuals, it is encouraged for them to attend. And so we are looking at it whether it's possible to make it compulsory, but the resources that will be required to make it compulsory with about 200,000 marriages a year, and making sure everybody attends the course before they can get married, we might delay some people from getting married as well. So, and so we're having a lot of opposition as well and saying, why make it compulsory? Let them come willingly and all that. If they're not interested, they're not going to get the knowledge which we are going to share with them. Okay, so see some of the activities we have for the family in our centers. Health activities, therapeutic activities, cooking demonstrations. Okay, this is a key program that we came out from the Family Wellbeing Index. It's a family and community empowerment. When we initially did this project, if you're to look at family well-being in communities and then put in interventions and see whether there is a change in results pre and post. But we found that if it's already high, certain level, like say 7 is quite a good range, and you do interventions, it's not going to change much the final result. So you have a lot of resources spent, but the results are not so there. So we need to look at looking at specific communities which we know have issues in terms of maybe safety, in terms of family issues, in terms of social issues, and then do a family well-being pre and post study. And then empowering the social mechanism in the community. So we need to have, they have religious organizations, they have social organizations, they have other community NGOs working in communities. So we need them to become champions for the Family Wellbeing Index. So we give them, there's so many domains, health, education, religion. So if every NGO or individual can champion each of these domains, and we guide them on how to have activities and programs to enhance the index or to enhance that particular domain scores. And this is a very intensive intervention. It needs a lot of resources, a lot of commitment, a lot of participation and engagement. So on paper, it looks fine, it works well, but I think with with the buy-in from our stakeholders, and we are serious about it, and it's really a community in need, we will be able to see the results of increased family well-being. So some of the success factors, I have only 1 minute left, I think. From the lessons from the existing programs, proper needs assessment, commitment of the community as well, budget, very, very important. There's no budget. Even the family champions which we identify, if we don't give them funding, they're not going to do any programs. So it's always, money is a big issue. Collaboration with NGOs, technology utilization, improved monitoring and evaluation and research is very, very critical for success factors. Challenges is again commitment of the family champions, the NGOs, the community to attend, sustainability of interventions, community engagement again, measuring impact. So these are some of the challenges which we face. In terms of, I've got 15 seconds. Okay, transformation success. Just let me quickly go through. You have to have a community engagement, understand where we are now, where we are headed, and come up with a strategy canvas, come up with a methodology on developing certain actionable projects to ensure a successful interventions. Okay, the way forward, again, we still need advocacy and promotion and importance of enhancing family well-being and strengthening families. Family engagement and participation is key to successful interventions. Multi-sectoral programs, we cannot work in silo if we need success. We have to work together. Economy is a big issue, and we have to look at financial literacy programs, empowering families. The 3Ps approach is very, very critical. People, public and private utilization, media and mainstreaming role. We have to also look at the role of families from the perspective of the Sustainable Development Goals. No family left behind. That's our motto as well. And if you look at the 17 Sustainable Goals, family is cross-cutting. It cuts across every goal, especially education, gender equality, goal 11, which is sustainable production and consumption, partnerships and all that. So we need to look at it from that perspective, Agenda 2030 as well. Finally, as I said, in conclusion, while GDP is important, we also have to look at other measures such as Family Wellbeing Index and other interventions, focus group discussion, intensive one-to-one interventions to make sure that we target our services, interventions where it's needed. Defining well-being is challenging, it's complex, multidimensional, and it will be different from country to country depending what is important to that. But generally, the areas are similar as well. And how can the family well-being guide policy and intervention? So these are some of the challenges, and I would say, which is very important, but the Family Wellbeing Index is a good way of looking at where the family is headed. And I would like to say that investing in families is an investment in societal development. Thank you very much for your attention.